And joining us live from the Staples Center right now, Reverend Jesse Jackson. Good morning to you, Reverend Jackson.
Good morning to you.
It's a very early morning for you out there, and I know that this ceremony will be getting underway in just a few short hours. How would you describe how this all came together and what you expect it to be?
You know, that will be the very private ceremony today. The family, Mrs. Jackson, devoutly religious at Jehovah's Witness, that will be a very private ceremony. And then there will be this kind of massive celebration here in at the Staples Center. But I cannot help but think about the journey. I mean, in Gary, Indiana, that house of 11 people and 4 rooms, those 6 boys and their parents living in 1 bedroom, and those girls on the couch in the living room. A disciplined, a father who was a crane operator, a welder, teaching music and dance by night. A mother who made all their uniforms. Out of that came a disciplined family that now is the #1 musical family in the whole world. And so I have to appreciate the journey from Gary to this high place.
Reverend, right away, while the family's mourning their loss of the youngest son, they still are in court and they still have a lot of paperwork to go through and a lot of financial decisions to make. How would you describe Mrs. Jackson, Katherine Jackson's attitude after yesterday's proceedings, which does not put her in control of the estate, at least until August 3rd?
You know, the family has had to endure the suddenness, the mourning, and the grief. The glory of the global response to Michael, and then suddenly the bizarre behavior of the doctor, and then the custody of the children, and then Michael's assets, his business. They've had to go through an awful lot, but I think that in the end they will endure. Michael made his will very clear. His mother's to be in charge. He requested for his children and his assets, and so those are real legal battles beyond today's celebration. But give the family some time to mourn and grieve. They certainly deserve it, and Michael deserves to be celebrated today.
Reverend, this is Michael's final goodbye, sir. Just give us a sense, why is the Reverend Jesse Jackson there, and why is he on TV right now?
You know, in 1967, I saw this group perform at Mayor Richard Hatcher's inauguration in Gary, Indiana. A couple years later, we were doing the expo in Chicago, and someone came, Junius Griffin, said, "We want the group of kids to perform at the expo." I said, "There's no room for them. We have Sammy Davis Jr. and Quincy Jones and Cannonball Adderley, Nancy Wilson, all of that." He said, "Well, at least if you can't fit them in, at least come downstairs and speak to them." And there they were in the station wagon, all the boys and the dad at the wheel, and the U-Haul attached to it with the guitars and drums in it. And they said, "Let us perform," and they did a matinee. And of course, that was a big impact. So across these years, we've known them since 1967. So whether we were with them at the Victory Tour in Kansas City, in Neverland in a time of trauma, helping to reorganize his business, we've been there with them down through the years. So today it's a kind of family celebration, a relationship that's lasted more than 40 years.
And yet, Reverend, there seems to be some controversy attached to all the coverage that this has received, because Michael Jackson was, in his later years, a controversial figure. And so some people are asking whether or not this coverage is fit for somebody who was not a president of the United States. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, because his reach was bigger than an American president who is the president of a nation. Michael's music was beyond that. I remember being in Russia, about 20 years ago, and Iron Curtain was still up, and 11 o'clock at night, and the radio was on. All night long was Michael and the Jackson 5 and Diana Ross and the Supremes. It was a Motown night, the Temptations, and so the music transcended nations. And so there's a big impact here because he's affected 1 billion records sold, maybe billions more will be sold in the aftermath of his death. And so Michael was a global figure. So the coverage corresponds to the size he was in the world of entertainment.
Reverend, I just have one quick question for you. You mentioned that the bizarre behavior of the doctor in those last days of Michael Jackson. How interested are you, number one, is the family into his condition in that last rehearsal, and what do you know now about what the doctor did or didn't do in those final days?
You know, all we really know is that when I came out here on last Friday, the parents were grieving and crying over his loss. celebrating the response, but then the doctor had not called them, did not sign the death certificate, did not talk with the coroner, could not be found. His car was impounded. He shows up ultimately with a lawyer. And those questions, and the issue of the medical usage, prescription drugs, it now throws a light, by the way, on the use of prescription drugs by everybody. And then the custody of the children, then the business. And so much has happened these last 10 days, taking them far away from the pain of it all, but yet they grieve. So that they let them mourn with some dignity and let Michael rest in peace.
All right, Reverend Jackson, a lot of eyes will be on this memorial service today. You're close to it. You're close to the family. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Thank you.